Welcome to Mr. News Art Class. It's wonderful to see your smiling faces. In today's lesson, we'll be taking a look at some landscape paintings made by Ted Harrison. Take a look at some of these pictures and analyze the colors and the shapes that he uses. Out of all of these beautiful pictures, my personal favorite is this one, titled Visitor from Space. Let's use this one today as a reference for understanding his style of art. First, let's take a look at this object screaming across the sky at the top of the page. You see that it's leaving a blazing trail of fire as it burns up on its way into the atmosphere. Notice the layers of color in that area, ranging from red to different levels of pink, and then to oranges and yellows in the middle. And notice the layers of different blues on the front of that object that wrap around it and make a cone of a shock wave as it breaks the sound barrier. Now take a look down at the ground where we see flowing wavy lines that show us the mountains and hills in the foreground. And notice that these different layers are different values of blue, from light to medium to dark. There's also some pink lakes and a river that are reflecting that beautiful warm glow from above. And if we look at the very, very bottom, we see two people gazing up at this interesting event happening in the sky above them. Finally, let's take a look at the sky in the middle of the page. Here we can barely make out the moon and some stars in between this fiery comet or whatever it is and the ground. The sky is a deep, dark blue, but there are rings that get lighter and lighter as they go towards the horizon, which makes me think it must be either a sunrise or a sunset. Okay, now that we have really looked at and analyzed all the different parts of that picture, let's grab a crayon, and really any color will do, but I'm going to use black for the outlines. And let's start figuring out how we're going to lay out something similar on our page here. First, we want to get sort of those outlines of the most important part, which in this picture is that comet or asteroid or whatever it is that's burning up on its way in from space. And so what we're going to do is we're going to figure out where to put that. And it should be somewhere near the middle of the page, but not right in the middle of the page. We want to move it maybe off to one side a little bit. And that's just a circle. Then we want to have that tail that goes all the way across the sky. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start all the way on the edge of my paper over here, the opposite side of the page. I'm going to swoosh in and come real close to that circle but not touch it, wrap around it, and then swoosh back across the other way. But I want layers. I don't want just one shape for that tail coming across the sky. I want lots of shapes. Layers kind of coming inside of each other as they wrap around. Kind of like that. Next, we want the mountains underneath. the mountains. So instead of drawing a straight line for the horizon, we're going to draw a jagged, bumpy, almost a zigzag, but I'm not making like up, down, up, down, up. I'm going up, down, up, you know, they're all different sizes, right? Okay, because I want it to look jagged like mountaintops. Okay. Now, everything from there up is the sky. There's one more thing we need to do with this before we try to put in the moon and the stars and stuff. So with this comet thing, we're going to need to have that sort of cone out in front of it. So we've got this tail coming out behind it, but we want a nice wide swoosh that kind of comes to a point in front of it. And we want a couple layers of that come out in front of it. Okay. Let's move back down to the bottom here to the landscape, and let's add a couple more layers of these mountains and hills too. And we want those to overlap in interesting ways, right? See how there's this tall mountain in front of a shorter mountain? And then here there's a short mountain in front of a tall mountain. So these lines get closer together, then farther apart, then closer together, then farther apart, then closer together. We want that. We don't want them to be like exactly the same. We want some variety. And we're gonna make a couple layers of these and maybe even have like a little lake. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna make sort of a more wiggly, wavy and less jagged, bumpy, more of a wiggly, wavy line in here for a lake. And then I'm gonna have some more mountains that come down in front of it here on both sides. And there, I don't really have enough room to draw the people at the bottom or the little river or things like that, but I'm just gonna leave it here. When you're done drawing out those outlines, then it's time to put your crayon away and switch over to watercolor paints. I usually like to just pour a little bit of water from my water bottle into the little tray here. And for today, we're gonna need to be mixing some colors. Mixing some colors. So if we take a look here at this tail coming off of this comet thing, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different layers. I want each of those 5 different layers to be a noticeably different color. But I want them all to be the same color. Wait, what? How can they be the same color but different colors? What? I don't know what you mean, Mr. New. Well, check this out. My brush is dry right now. If I get my brush really wet, and then I come grab some yellow. I'll start with some yellow. I'm gonna stir up that yellow. And I'm gonna put the yellow in the middle, in that smallest shape, just a teeny tiny little shape, right? But I'm also going to spread some of that yellow into the shape around it. Okay, so they're the same color, right? But I don't want them to be exactly the same color. I want them to be close, but a little different. So what I need to do is mix another color into one of those layers. All right, let me come get some orange. I'm gonna get some orange. And I'm gonna mix that, not into both layers, but just into one of the layers. And you see how that mixes with the yellow paint and makes it a bright yellow orange? And then if I go get some more orange for the next layer, this next layer is gonna be a different kind of orange. It's gonna be a darker, deeper orange. It's not gonna be as yellow. Okay. Now, if this area here is too yellow, then I could add more orange. If it's too orange, I could add more yellow. Right now I'm just kind of stirring them up to make sure you can see that that is a brighter yellower orange compared to this. All right, now I'm gonna, what color did I just use for this layer? Orange. I want the next layer to be maybe an orange mixed with a red. Okay, so I'm gonna paint this layer orange. I'll start with the orange. And right now it looks the same as the layer before it. But then I'm gonna mix some red in when I'm done painting it orange. While the paint is still wet, I'm gonna come grab some red. And I'm gonna mix that red into this orange. You see how that's making the orange darker and redder? So it doesn't look the same as this orange. Okay, I wanna do that on the other side too. All right, so we're going from yellow to yellow-orange to red-orange to, let's do red next. Let's just do pure red. So I'm gonna get some pure red on my brush here. And I'm gonna make this last outside layer with that total red. So we're mixing colors, we're mixing them here on the paper, we're not mixing them in the tray. Like, did I take my red and go put it in the yellow to make, no. I'm mixing those colors on the paper, not on the tray. All right. And while I'm at it, I want to use those same kinds of colors to reflect on this water down here. This is a little pond here in the middle at the bottom, and I can pick really any one of those colors, but I'm gonna go with my red, and I'm gonna mix that, I'm gonna put that red right here into the pond, the lake. Just fill that whole lake in. It's just reflecting that bright, warm color from the sky above. Now that we have finished all of these bright, warm colors in the sort of asteroid burning up and in the reflection of that down on the water below, it's time to start adding in those cool colors, those blues and purples. And what we're gonna do for starters is this area here in the sky around the sort of bright comedy thing coming through. We're going to start with a very light blue. Now, if I have some blue paint, how do I make it lighter? How do I make a color lighter by mixing white with it? Well, I don't have any white paint to mix with it, so what do? What I need to do is mix the blue paint with the white of the paper. Huh? Well, with watercolor paints, if I use a lot of water and don't spend much time stirring, right? I just barely stirred that blue, and then I spread it out. You see how light that is? Get a wet brush, just barely touch the blue paint and spread it way out. So that puts a little bit of blue on a lot of white. Really wet brush, just barely touch the blue and spread it out. And I'm doing this in the area that's right around this comet because that's the brightest part of the sky. Little bit of blue with a lot of water and spread it all out. Lot of water, little bit of blue, spread it out. Lot of water, little bit of blue, spread it out. A lot of water, a little touch of blue, spread it out. I didn't really stir the blue paint at all. Now, how am I going to make it darker? Well, I could go and add black, but before I start adding black, I should just use the blue. Use more blue and less of the white paper. So, I'm going to get my water, and this time, I'm going to stir the blue. I'm going to spend some time stirring it. The more you stir it, the darker it'll get, but only to a certain point. Okay? Now that I've been stirring that for a little bit, I'll put that on the outside of this cone, and you can see that that is much, much darker, right? All right, let's get a little bit more of that, stir it up quite a bit. All right. And, you know, for the rest of the sky, I think I'm actually going to mix that blue with a purple to make it darker. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to fill the whole rest of the sky with this blue, this dark, deep, vibrant blue. But to make the darkest part of the sky, I'm going to add purple to it. So let's just go and fill this whole sky in with the dark, dark blue. And then outside of this first little cone looking thing, what I'm going to do is switch to a purple. I'm going to stir up my purple so I get a nice thick dark purple. And I'm going to mix that in with the blue. And you can see how that makes that blue a lot darker. Yeah. All right. For these mountains, I want to kind of do a similar thought. I want to move from blue to darker blue to really dark blue. And I think actually the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to have these mountains down at the bottom be this dark blue, but not like this blue violet. These down here are going to be like just that really dark blue. And then I'm going to make it blue violet as it goes to here. And then I'm going to mix black in to those really distant mountains to make them the darkest dark. So let's try that out. I'm just going to get pure dark deep blue for the bottom area here. And then when I'm done with this area, the next layer is also going to be this same deep dark blue, but plus some purple. But I'm not going to mix those colors here on my tray. I'm going to mix them on my paper. So I'm just going to paint these next mountains, this next layer of mountains. I'm going to paint them with this dark deep blue, and then go over it with purple. All right, now that I'm done with the blue, I'm going to switch over to my purple, get that really thick and dark, and mix it right in with the blue that's there. And then the rest of these mountains are the ones that are the farthest away. And so they're going to be the darkest. And so what I'm going to do for those is I'm just going to put, I could just do black, but I want to mix my colors. So I'm going to start with a purple and then mix black into that purple. So I'll start with a purple, I'll fill that in, and then I'll add black to it. All right, so I've finished up that purple. Now I need black. And again, I want to stir this up a lot to make it dark. Otherwise, it'll just look kind of gray. So I'm going to stir that black paint up, make it really dark, and mix that with the purple. And you can see how that's making it a dark purple. It's not just black. It's a dark purple, especially if I spread it around and don't put too much black in one place. And there you have it. That is a Ted Harrison inspired landscape painting with mixing of colors in different layers as things go back and back and back and around and around and around. And those layers of colors are helping to give that illusion that there's a big wide open space here. Today we talked about landscapes, which are wide open spaces, and in our next lesson we're going to be talking about portraits, which is what you call it when you draw a person. I can't wait to see you then.